Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, we thank the Special Rapporteur on the situation of human rights and fundamental freedoms of indigenous people, Professor James Anaya, for his report, including the one on Nepal that he prepared following his visit to the country at the invitation of my government. As a multi-ethnic, multilingual and multicultural country, Nepal attaches great importance to the work of this mandate. In continuation of the excellent tradition of cooperation, the government extended all cooperation to the Special Rapporteur and facilitated widest possible interaction with all relevant stakeholders during his trip to Nepal. Mr. President, Nepal is undergoing through a historic political transformation within the overall framework of democratic polity. The people of Nepal elected Constituent Assembly last year, which stands as a rare example of the most representative institution in the country's history. Representation of the Adivasi Janajatis in the Assembly has marked historic record, with 1/3 of its membership being elected from these groups. The main task of the Constituent Assembly is to write a democratic constitution incorporating universally accepted fundamental human rights, multi-party competitive democratic system, independent judiciary, press freedom, rule of law, periodic elections, social justice and equality. The government is committed to inclusiveness and state restructuring along the federal lines in place of the existing centralized and unitary structure of the state. Constituent Assembly and various thematic committees remain engaged in the process of writing constitution. A separate committee on the protection of the rights of the minorities and marginalized groups has been formed within the Constituent Assembly to specifically articulate the rights and interests of these groups. Mr. President, 2 years ago, Nepal voted for the adoption of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People in the UN General Assembly. We later ratified the ILO Convention number 169 on the indigenous and tribal peoples. In consultation with stakeholders, expert group and representative from the Adivasi Janajatis, the government of Nepal has prepared a comprehensive national plan of action for the implementation of the ILO Convention 169. This reflects our national commitment to the development, welfare and overall protection and promotion of the rights of Adivasi Janajatis and ensure their full and effective participation in all organs and levels of state mechanism. Mr. President, the Interim Constitution of Nepal 2007 guarantees the right to equality to every citizen and provides equal protection of law. It guarantees civil liberties and fundamental human rights, including the right to social justice, right against racial discrimination, right regarding employment and social security, among others. The Constitution also provides that the Adivasi Janajatis, among others, have the right to participate in the state structure on the basis of principle of proportional inclusion. Mr. President, the democratic political process initiated in the country has unleashed opportunities for all people. The contributions made by the process in bringing the human rights and fundamental freedoms of all people in Nepal to the forefront and creating safeguards for the promotion and protection of the civil, political, economic and cultural rights has been remarkable and therefore needs to be acknowledged and duly recognized. Nepal is making a democratic transition after over a decade-long armed conflict. Transition is a complex process with multifaceted tasks. The process is also a part of the transition from deprivation to development, marginalization to inclusiveness and participation, and discrimination to equality and impartiality. It is a continuous process, and the government is committed to the process of mainstreaming, as is reflected in this year's budget, and I quote, "No resources will be constrained for the implementation of the agreements made by the government of Nepal with indigenous groups, ethnic groups, Tharus, backward communities, Muslims, other parties, organizations, and trade unions," unquote. Mr. President, Nepal is proud of its rich diversity. Diversity has enriched Nepal's unique unity, social harmony, and tolerance. This is our national asset and therefore stands as a singular strength for national unity and development. Indigenous peoples, through time immemorial, have augmented this asset for national unity and integrity and made major contribution to the making of modern Nepal. Government considers them as the cornerstone of its multiculturalism and a unifying factor for the nation. These values remain ingrained in our national character. They have shaped our civilization, culture, and way of life. We are building national institutions premised on these time-tested values and norms. My government remains committed to honor these values, consolidate the historic democratic achievements of the peaceful people's movements, institutionalize them in the new constitution, and establish permanent peace in the country by taking the peace process to its positive and meaningful